we're hoping to help you maintain those by creating long-term lasting solutions.
Right.
Hey,
Instead of
Riley,
resolutions.
super excited. Pen in hand, let's go.
All
Dr.
right.
Francisco's prepared an amazing talk for us today to learn all about this incredible organism that we are as human beings and how to operate in a super intense and dysregulating modern world.
Yeah, we're humaning in a weird time right now. Who could agree with that? Say yes in the comments if we're humaning in a weird. There you go, Lauren. Lauren agrees. But yeah, things are weird, and our nervous systems are kind of dysregulated, and I mean, like we're stressing out about things that we really shouldn't be stressing out about. But it's a lot more than just that, and we're really excited to share that with you today. So we're just going to give a couple more minutes here, a couple more seconds to have people come in live. We got a full house today. Thank you again for everybody being here. This is amazing information. It's awesome that we can gather here and have some collective energy and put some stuff in, some energy into making ourselves feel better, right?
All right, friends. The
Okay.
time is now. We'll let people in as they join. Everyone is muted. Thank you again so much for joining us. Without further ado, Dr. Francisco Cidral is going to be sharing his screen and sharing some incredible information with us today. He just got back from a trip in India as well, and he's been presenting and sharing information on how to help us human better in these modern times. So without further ado, please take it away, Dr. Francisco.
Yeah, I myself am a little bit dysregulated today because of the trip, as you mentioned. It's such a long time on the plane and you don't
Mm.
sleep well. So, every time we speak a little bit more about the physiology behind how to, the stress system and sleep can affect your overall physiology and your ability to recover and regulate in this crazy environment that we're talking about. And we try not to push too much the physiology, but I explain a little bit more, a little bit more. So in this series, I think we're going to learn a lot more on what's going on with our body and our physiology and different ways to help us modulate all this stress and lack of sleep and everything else. So today I'll speak a little bit more about the physiology in certain aspects and try not to bring too much and but interesting tips. And then we're gonna do just that and like talk about some of the things that we can do and that we have to look at in terms of our habits. It's always the habits. There is no magical pill. There never has been. People think, oh, yeah, I have this problem and I'll take something. It doesn't work. I can tell you right away. It may be good for something acute. Maybe you have like an acute pain, then you take something that helps with that pain. And pain, I'm talking about in general as as everything else, But if you don't shift, if you don't change something in your lifestyle, you're not going to get well. There is a lot of very interesting talks on and a lot of very good books on the meaning of disease and of suffering in that way. It's not, not to get very philosophical, but it's pretty straightforward. Come to think of it, if you're suffering from a chronic problem, that means that you need to do something to change. Something needs to change in your life so that you can get rid of that. If it doesn't change, if you don't do any changes that are permanent, that have to do with lifestyle, guess what? The same things are going to start happening. Not only that, probably they're going to get even worse because you get to a certain point and you continue on the same type of habits, and then it gets worse, and then it gets worse, and then it gets worse. So a lot of people look at these problems from the perspective that they are kind of cues to let you know that you need to change, to transform, to do some modification in your life. And if you don't, how do you expect something to be different if you continue doing the exact same things over and over? That's not going to change. It's only going to get worse. And that's one of the things that is key. The key to getting better is to looking at those things that you do on a regular basis and then having to come to this conclusion that some changes are important, and you have to change something in your lifestyle, and it has to be in your lifestyle, something that you do on a regular, day. In psychology, we know that we're creatures of habit, and then habits can be very good things, but they can be very bad things, and we work on like an autonomous type of way in a lot of situations, because first, stress, like as we talked before, disconnects our prefrontal cortex, your brain, and then you start acting more on repetition, and if you always have the same type of reaction, guess what? You're gonna have the same reaction again next time, unless you really, think about transforming, about changing. And habits, like what we said, habits can be very, very good if you develop good habits. And also sometimes people think, well, um, this is me. I'm like this. No, this is your habit. There's no limit to what you can be. You can change everything that you want, about yourself. It's just you have to change your habit, change the way that you're looking at things, and then acting that way. It just hit me that not just about physiology that we talk here, but maybe we could talk about different things like neuro-linguistic programming, for instance. I'm certified as a neurolinguistic programmer before I was into neuroscience and became a Ph.D. in neuroscience. So so that's another thing that we could talk about, these different cues. So for those who don't know me, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I have a master's and a Ph.D. in neuroscience and a postdoc in health sciences. I'm a professor in neurophysiology and integrative medicine, and I'm associated and a co-founder of a lab of experimental neuroscience at a very big institution in Brazil. That's where I was born. But I'm also a professor at the lab of neuromodulation and posturology at Sapienza University in Rome. I'm also an Italian citizen and the co-founder of the Integrative Open Institute here in the US. So Brazil, Italy, the US, and now I'm doing a lot of work in India as well, with All Indian Institute of Medical Sciences and National Institutes of Mental Health and Neurosciences. Been traveling quite a bit, doing a lot of research in complementary integrative therapies, and I'm also the CEO of Scientifica Consulting that works with validation and substantiation, regulatory for various different groups here in the U.S. So a little bit step further on the stress. We talked a little bit about how it affects our brain in the last talks, but stress also reduces our self-control in goal-oriented directions. You become more impulsive and less top-down regulation. I talk about that in the past, that it disconnects the prefrontal cortex part of your brain. And I'll show that in this picture over here, that exerts a top-down regulation. This part of your brain has to do with thought, with action, with emotion. When we're under stressful situations, we have activation of other parts of our brains, and we like to play that we say that we turn into a reptile because it activates the reptilian part of our brains, and then we reverse back to reflexive habitual responding habits, as we talked about, by activating these primitive brain circuits. And that leads to a lot of responses that are regulated through the autonomic nervous system, more specifically the sympathetic activity, right? And so stress can shift behavior toward habits. That's why we started talking about habits. These automatic responses that then people confuse them with their personality. Again, they say, "Oh, this is me." No, this is not you. This is just a habit. You can change those habits. And you need to be rather flexible and goal-oriented in your actions. So you need your prefrontal cortex to work. So you need to modulate stress. That's basic. Translation for these New Year goals, when stress is high, knowing what to do is not the same as having the bandwidth to do it. We just turn into habits. Practical takeaways. We have to build routines, create healthy habits, that are easy and repeatable, that reduce friction. So the habits work for you, not against you. So we need to develop healthy habits. And we can revert them back to them on an easy way. So let's be smart about it. Create a routine. If you don't have a routine, it's harder. So that's one of the first things that we need to think about. What is my healthy and recovery routine? And what are the things that I can incorporate into it so that it's easier for me to do instead of having to think every day? Because remember, we're in a stressful situation the whole day. So trying to take those actions at the moment is hard. So let's create a healthy routine. And those are the things that we're talking about here, is creating this routine. You know, just as a reminder, when you have that disruption in your brain, right, with activation of the more primitive parts, and you revert back to reflexive behavior or reactive behavior, you involve activation of a specific part of the autonomic nervous system. And remember, you have two different branches, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, right? We're not activating the calm and restore, we're activating the alert, the fight or flight mode, right? It increases heart rate, blood pressure, stress hormones that to help meet your demands at the moment, and that's what happens. You have a repression of the recovery mode that supports digestion, tissue repair, common baseline after those stresses, passes. It's very important to understand chronic stress can keep the autonomic nervous system really stuck on or in an activation mode the whole time. So, sleep onset, sleep that, the next day energy motivation is very hard. So let's create healthy routines so that we can get out of this mode, because guess what? You're going to be in that mode a lot during the day, to just to meet the demands of daily activities and everything else. And remember, it's the stress. This is what happens. Stress decreases parasympathetic, and then it should rebound. It should go back and return to normal. But moderate stressors that happen on a regular basis induce a stronger sympathetic stress response, and then you have inadequate responses from your system that doesn't rebalance. You diminish this vagal activity, and then you continue on the stress mode all the time, and you fail to recover. That's what we need to think about, creating those healthy routines and healthy habits, because we're creatures of habit, to go back and reverse, that situation. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. And remember, that's going to end up affecting your cortisol levels as well, because there is an alignment between the activity of the sympathetic during the day and the cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It's the hormone that actually is very good for you in the morning. Early in the morning, you need to wake up, you need to activate your cortisol. You can do specific routines here in the morning before 9 a.m. to activate cortisol. For instance, you could do a high intensity interval training before 9 in the morning. That is going to increase, give you a little bout of cortisol, but then, at the right time, then it decreases over the day, and then you have a normal cortisol rhythm. If you have higher levels of stress and higher levels of cortisol the whole day, and you don't do anything during the day to decrease this, you're going to be stuck in a situation like this, a flat high cortisol level. We can assess this physiologically, and we know where the phase is, but after 6 months more or less with this, you're going to revert back to this. You're going to go into a low flat cortisol. So this is flat high, this is flat low, which means you wake up, you don't even have any more energy in the morning, because you depleted over time. You did this. And remember, I already talked about this some other time, but this is really important. Here is the activity. You wake up, increase cortisol, and then it decreases during the sleep. Right? There is a relationship between the two, melatonin, that is decreased in the morning and increases during the night, and you sleep better, right? But guess what? If you have chronic cortisol levels, this bout of melatonin is not going to happen, because they're related to each other. Then you're going to have a decrease in this sleep hormone, let's put it that way. And then you don't sleep better, and you wake up in the middle of the night because your cortisol is still high. And then the problem is they don't go very well together. So people take melatonin at night and this is a very nice recipe to develop cancers. When you have that, high cortisol, and then you go in and you take melatonin. So the best way to do it is to go back to circadian cortisol. So you need to activate it in the morning with exercise and different activities, and decrease it during the day and during the night. And different things that you can do is according to all the literature, you have to modulate your diet, you can exercise properly in the right amount of times, and you do techniques like alignment. Use it judiciously and in a good way as part of your routine, not just once. It has to be every day as part of your relaxation routine. Before you go to bed and all that. I mean, Mike and Melissa could talk a little bit more about that for sure. Well, but I'm just trying to bring awareness to that technology. Why sleep is so important. It's a relationship that is so tied together: autonomic dysfunction that's modulated by stress and sleep disorders. Right? Sleep and autonomic nervous system regulation are linked. They influence each other. Sleep disorders are more common in people with autonomic dysfunction, and abnormal sleep can drive sympathetic imbalance, and autonomic dysfunction can disrupt sleep architecture. So everything is connected. These two go hand in hand. This helps explain why the chronic, people that sleep badly have a lot of bad emotional control. They have deficits in cognition and physical performance. So those two things are linked. So we need to really think about what are the techniques that we can do in order to sleep better. Well, guess what? The mat is a great way of doing that, right? Sleep is inevitable. You have to sleep. Otherwise, you can go a long ways without food, even without water to a certain extent. But without sleep, you can't. There is no way. You last a lot longer if you don't eat or if you don't drink. But sleep is really important. And the other thing is also when you have these bouts of stress, and then you have better sleep, all the research shows that it helps with recovery and helps with resilience. Recovery may be physical, which is the repair, but also mental, emotional and cognition. And we also, a lot of times we miss that window because something bad happens during the day. We don't relax enough. We don't get a good sleep. And then that really stresses our recovery and hinders the ability to recover in general. So that's why, again, routine and certain technologies can help. And we have a very good case here. So this looks a little complex, but I just wanted for you to show this is an amazing paper that talks about sleep and the recovery from stress, and it shows even in the paper itself. See that how all these things can lead to stress, social, natural disasters, war, family issues, work, and everything else, and how different interventions like relaxation, clear mind, all of these things, guess what? Slow breathing, all of these we can achieve with a session with line math, right? They are all there. And then also we need to think about sleep hygiene, right? Avoiding alcohol, coffee, screen-based devices, before you go to bed, good sleep environment, decrease the light and everything else. With that, we're going to have better sleep and then better ways of coping with stress and stress management. Very, very interesting. If we don't do that, look, poor sleep, anxiety, depression, it can exacerbate mental illnesses. It can lead to a lot of problems. So this is stress affects sleep through brain and body pathways. Sleep supports recovery and resilience. And our goal is to use practical strategies that make it easier for your nervous system to shift in that recovery mode. The other interesting thing is what we talked about, the insufficient sleep and circadian misalignment that has to do with stress. Remember, we talked about this? And how are these very common, and they act as metabolic stresses that are linked, guess what, to weight gain and obesity. The role of insufficient sleep and circadian misalignment in obesity. This is another very interesting review. Most of the people that we know nowadays are going towards chronic diseases, but the basis of those is this shift from a modulation to dysregulation, autonomic dysregulation, decrease in this control of the higher parts of our brain or top down regulation, the prefrontal cortex, chronic activation of the stress system, bad quality of sleep. See, insufficient sleep leads to an increase in ghrelin and a decrease in leptin. So this is the hunger hormone and the one that tells your body that you don't need to eat anymore, right? Everybody's talking about the pathways now and the drugs that are related to these two over here. But if you increase your quality of sleep, then you're going to help modulate this. Bad sleep increases appetite, increases energy intake, especially after dinner, right? Which then leads to obesity. So this cycle is vicious. It starts degrading, your muscle mass, your bone mass, and lead to obesity. You develop osteopenic obesity. That's the basis for all chronic diseases. That's what it is. So how important it is to make better choices, but also to sleep better. And the relationship there is extremely important. Not only that, but also to inflammation. We know that inflammation is at the basis of a lot of these problems, and chronic life stress is linked to higher inflammation. There is very, very well shown and a well-validated research showing that the body may not fully return to baseline between those stressful events, and recovery over time is compromised under this chronic stress. So stress and inflammation, big relationship as well. And then this is what I mean. A lot of people are saying this is the new problem. Everybody has a little bit of mental health issue, right? Nowadays, and motivation is very important as well. So chronic stress affects mental health in general. Stressful life events are closely linked to depression, anxiety, problems with focus, decrease in memory, brain fog, and everything else. Even your decision making, your judgment overall is affected. Remember, this part of your brain is disconnected. So it also can lower motivation, energy, and follow through. So chronic stress, very well associated with depressive disorders, and it has a lot of impact on your HPA axis and regulation. It decreases and causes atrophy in neurons. It decreases the density of those and also induces neuroinflammation and decreases the way that your brain can generate new cells, neurogenesis. It leading to neuroinflammation and increased oxidative stress. So it really influences your brain big time again. So here are some of the tips, giving you a little bit of the physiology and then some of the tips. The first one, as you know, you have to protect your sleep quality. That's basic thing that you need to do. And those are some of the things that you can do. You have to do your exercising, moving earlier during the day. Remember that we talked about that window before 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning where you want to have a spike in your cortisol levels. So you shouldn't be doing like very intense, especially high intensity interval trainings during the night, because you're going to have a bout of cortisol. It would be better to do those exercises early in the morning. And you can move during the afternoon or late afternoon, like walk, with nature, do different things, breathing exercise. You can still move, but you should do like hard, intense workouts early in the morning. That would be much better because it's going to help with the circadianity of your cortisol. Eat earlier. And again, if you go onto like a heavy meal late night, you're going to have spikes in your glucose, or because the foods, they generate that, of course. And then you wake up during the night and then ruminating on your food and your thoughts. So it's very important that you eat earlier, recommendedly before 8 p.m. Any light, something very, very light for those of you that have a, need to eat something later, that's fine, but nothing heavy. Also, the brighter days and dimmed lights, we have so much artificial lights in the house, and sometimes you turn everything on, it gets very bright during the night. It's hard because our circadian rhythm is connected to the light. We developed over so many years where it started to get dark, the activation through your eyes and specific pathways to your brain that trigger production of melatonin and cortisol and everything else is modulated. So during the night, you should bring the lights down. Make it a little more blue, more, less bright. That's going to help a lot. Avoid late caffeine, of course. Sometimes, like for me, the window is even 6 hours before I go to bed. Anything after like, 4 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon for me is already bad. Some people can deal with that much better. Like my wife drinks coffee before she sleeps and she sleeps longer than I do. But most people, should really avoid it. You could nap a little bit after the meals. You have a meal like for lunch and then do a reset of the autonomic nervous system. Or instead of going to a nap, you do a session with the alignment right after. So you recover. That's going to help. I don't know if you guys do that, but that works very, very nicely for me. And it's not a long nap. It's only like 10 minutes. So you do a 10-minute session. Right. And that like after a meal, and then you start the afternoon healthy. This is a very common habit in Latin countries, and also in Spain and Italy, where they have a little siesta, and that helps a lot. So we do a short, in the US is we have calls during lunch, right? Nobody stops. It's crazy. When I first got here, used to Italian and Brazilian culture, it was terrible for me because people were like scheduling calls during lunch, and you don't relax. So if you have that little break, even if it's like 10 minutes, your productivity is going to increase. Limit alcohol consumption and don't smoke. That both really harm sleep. People think that, well, I have the drinks before I go to bed, then I sleep better. No, you don't. You don't get into the deep stages of sleep. Your brain, keeps accumulating all those toxins that generated by the activity during the day. So it's actually much worse for you. You're generating brain inflammation, neuroinflammation, actually. And then treat persistent sleep issues. If you have any persistent sleep issue, you have to address it, because that's the key to a healthy life, really. And there's so many different studies. I'm just going to talk about a few, like when you're looking at even in the elderly. They did a very interesting study with 127 adults between 60 and 95, and they did planned exercising, everyday physical activity, and it was shown that it was related to better day well-being. Just doing some movement that day mattered, especially for the stress levels. And I'm talking about even non-exercising activities like walking, doing chores in the house, general movement, any activities association with better positive mood and sleep quality. So that's very important that you move, even in small amounts. For some outcomes like mood and health, more time spent exercising was associated with better or additional benefits, right? But if any movement at all, even on low energy days, small bouts still count and are very beneficial for your health. Just the high intensity ones, do them in the morning before 9 a.m. So here's the second one, which is very important: move daily. Even small amounts matter. Exercise associated with the benefits, not just for sleep, but depression and anxiety. Improves emotional regulation, improves cognition, focus, flexibility, less rumination, and helps people stay steadier under stress. Helps with the rebounds. Exercise isn't like a quick fix. It builds the capacity to cope, because you're going to be, guess what? Stress are going to be there. He's always going to be there. But you need to adapt. You need to cope. You need to be able to manage it. And resilience is something that you can get from this. Exercise builds the capacity to cope, to adapt, and to follow through. And then the one that we keep talking about, that fits in all different situations. You need to create this daily downshift routine, your habit. And the habit is always shifting from this go mode to the restore mode, from the stress mode to the recovery mode. When can you do it? You can do it after a meal, like we talked about, like a session. Alyssa and Mike are going to tell you what session to do. And after work, post training. 30 to 6 minutes before bed. You can use it in different occasions depending on your day to day, you know, how much time you have and everything else. And you can do the session together with breath work. You can do a little light stretching before. You know, you can do a little heat as well if you want. It already has in the mat, but you can do that as well. And different relaxation practices. It goes very well with the meditations. It goes very well with all this additional, but it needs to be a structured, repeatable habit, you know, that you use for downshifting. Your brain knows when you go into the mat, it's time for you to relax and recover. And then if you keep doing this, automatically, this consistency is going to improve because then it's automatic. You know, that's your habit. That's your go-to. Does that make sense? Simple. There is a lot of evidence. I'm not going to go into all the research and everything else because that would be too much, but there is a lot of evidence already on the effects of PMF and far infrared and in exposure to it and increasing autonomic modulation. You know, improve sleep quality, reduced anxiety, and modulation of the autonomic nervous system, right? And also far infrared, the same thing for heart rate variability modulation and the relevant benefits in autonomic responses and brain level activity as well. I did show you some of these results before, but just a single 20-minute line session was associated with this immediate shift toward the higher sympathetic activity and the lower stress level, decreasing stress index, decreasing heart rate, and increasing the marker of vagus nerve activation, right? So that's just a simple session, 20 minutes, modulating autonomic nervous system, which is extremely important. We also looked at a couple of case reports where we looked at individual observations of people using the Whoop and the Aura Ring and showed benefits in terms of quality of sleep, higher sleep efficiency, improving heart rate variability, and higher recovery and readiness score, right? If you remember this, total sleep increased, sleep efficiency increased in two different cases. Those are case reports that were documented, right? With better sleep scores and better 50% increase in recovery. I'm not talking about one or two. I'm talking about a very measurable and an effective way of helping you recover. So why wouldn't you do it, right? And then we are also looking now at this is an ongoing real life study. We have about 48 individuals at the moment, but we're increasing the sample size as we go. That participants responded with just one session, and here we have the two different devices showing the increase in stress. How much did your stress decrease with one session? More than 85%. One session. That's huge. How more relaxed you felt? 90%. It's very effective, right? With just one. How much your overall comfort improved? Almost 90% recovery. And that's the word. And overall well-being. So this is validated, through real data observed with real individuals that did one session, and you have cumulative effects. So how do you regulate your stress so that your biology supports consistency? Protect your sleep quality. That's the foundation. That's the first thing you need to do. Consistent wind down, sleep, wake timing, brighter days, stimmer lights. Remember that, the light cues, caffeine timing, late night eating awareness, doing the exercises early in the morning, not at late at night. Moving this late, even the small amounts are going to matter. Regular exercises, right? Short walks, mobility breaks to reset your stress zone during the day. Don't be sitting in front of a computer the whole day. Do a little walk. Maybe do a little session right after the meal. And sleep. Do a little relaxation, and then do those routines also before you go to bed. So very important that you need to build this routine as part of your habit, because we are, again, creatures of habit. If you don't do that change, if you don't, it's only going to get worse. So create your healthy routine and incorporate these things into it. Remember also the supportive. We're not talking about this today, but we can talk about it some other time. Supportive is hydration, balanced meals, keep it simple and variable. So that's what I wanted to give you today, and then maybe you guys could talk a little bit more about how do you integrate, what kind of sessions and different types of the day.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Francisco. That was incredible and definitely aligned with, the theme of what we wanted to talk about and share. And the alignment is a powerful tool to help with daily recovery and helping you reset and also modulating your nervous system so you can cope with daily stressors better and stick with the goals and dreams and aspirations that you've all set for yourself, whether it's just 2026 and it's a resolution or it's something long term. We have a question I want to answer, and then I definitely want to talk about, everyone will receive a handout with these practical tips and things that you can implement into your day-to-day life.
I mean, that was awesome, Dr. Francisco. It was really cool. We were like shaking our heads and smiling and talking amongst ourselves here. I mean, we could go down rabbit holes with everything that you spoke about. I mean, like we will a little bit because, and I want to really touch on cortisol. Cortisol is actually something that you need to live, but it's also a little great painkiller too. But a lot of people don't know that. So when you have too much cortisol in your system and it can't dump out, and we're always in that fight or flight, we're having this cortisol and it's actually sending our body messages that their pain's not there. So when we release this cortisol and we bring our levels back to normal, we might have aches, pains, or things that show up that weren't there before. It's because that cortisol was the painkiller. So when people get on the align mat, sometimes there might be a really small period of, uncomfortable, right? But that's because your body is going back into homeostasis. You're bringing your body back and your body's like, oh, wait, now I can start feeling these things because the painkiller is not in my body. But the more that you do the align mat and the more that you have like a routine, of course, it's going to get better. So just putting that out there, it's like sometimes that happens.
To give that into a real world perspective, has anyone ever gotten the flu or been sick and they realize like during the day they have a better coping mechanism because their cortisol is high and you feel worse at night? This is actually due to that hormone cortisol. So you're like, oh, I'm getting more sick. No, your body just has less ability to cope with it when our cortisol is depleted from the day. Our adrenal glands are working really, really hard and they can only do so much. So we're trying to help you modulate at a cellular level and improve function as an entire organism, looking top down. So a lot of people, they ask Dr. Francisco, they ask us, they're like, is the align mat good for X, Y, and Z chronic disease? No, it's good to improve and optimize function for the entire system.
Mhm.
So it's not just for one thing, it's for everything top down.
Exactly. I mean, like Alyssa and I are first and foremost practitioners and educators. And this is why we created the align mat, is selfishly for ourselves, because our, pain to purpose stories of my anxiety and Alyssa's, more physical imbalances that she was dealing with. So we know that this works. We know how important it is to have a routine. And it's not just, owning align mat, although that's amazing to do. And we have these clinical studies to show you that this is actually working in real time. And not to mention that we're the only resonant PEMF mat on the market that has real clinical studies. So that we're doing in real time. So thank you, Dr. Francisco.
You look so balanced now. You look so aligned.
I actually just got off the mat before we started this because that's one of my favorite things to do.
Before we get on a call.
On a call, like a stressful call. These aren't stressful. I love doing this. I love teaching. I love being in front of the camera, right? So it just makes it that much better, and it regulates your nervous system. And we do those techniques of like breathing, right? And one of my frequencies, like you told us to share our frequencies, I love 7.83. That's what my body resonates with. I'm like an earth being. I mean, like I would walk barefoot outside, in stores if it was, going to actually ground me, which it's not, because, we're in these concrete foundations, but we can go into that a little bit later. But
yeah, so I would invite everyone that's on the screen now, and we'll provide a link in the follow-up email, as we are continuing to do ongoing research and studies, and obviously the larger population size that we have to continue to substantiate the evidence. We would love to send out a little link for it's literally takes 30 seconds, a pre-questionnaire, and then you do a session on the mat and then a post-questionnaire and just answer how your body has changed or what you've noticed pre and post. And it just brings some attention and awareness in real time to how the sessions are helping you. And again, this is something that is compounding every single time. It's not just the first time that you use a session.
Right.
Patricia, I would love to share that with you as well. So I'm going to get to Maggie's question first.
Cool. Yeah, sorry, I digress. I get excited on these things. I want to talk and tell you guys about everything because I didn't realize how many people we think it's just common knowledge, but when we tell other people, they're like, oh my gosh, wait, did that just come out of your mouth? There's no way. It happens over and over again. But get to her question.
So Maggie was asking, when is the best time to do an aligned session? And honestly, because you're in control of your frequency destiny, it's meeting you wherever you are meeting your mat at. So you can start the day with an energizing session at P5 or P6. Even if you had some like soreness, say you did a hard workout the day before, that athletic recovery range is between 40 and 50 hertz with the manual settings. So you could go all the way up and start your day at 50 hertz. As Dr. Francisco was talking about, that cortisol alignment, we want to be in alignment with that, with our frequency as well. So higher frequencies earlier in the day to start the day. And then as the day is progressing, we want that cortisol to drop as the sun is starting to set in the sky as well. So we would like to lower our frequency settings as the day progresses. And then Mike was saying how his favorite setting is 7.83 hertz. Literally, you could do that Earth's heartbeat frequency, the Schumann resonance, at any point in time during the day as a reset. If you're living in the tundra of Alaska right now, you're not going to go walk outside barefoot in your backyard. Getting on your mat at 7.83 hertz would mimic what you would get in nature in your living room or your bedroom. So,
absolutely. And you don't necessarily need the aligned mat. You can just go outside with your bare feet and take up these frequencies that we mimicked in the mat with our OSRM frequencies, right? So it's an amazing tool. It's awesome to get outside, to get out in the sun, right? Get our bare feet in the dirt so we can ground. And that's where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be connected to the earth. I mean, like cavemen and people that, that were there existed way before us didn't have Nikes on.
So yeah, rubber-soled shoes definitely keep us disconnected from natural earth surfaces and living on concrete foundations, even though we've created beautiful boxes for ourselves to live and work in. We are huge proponents of you getting in alignment with nature. Nature did not make a mistake, and we are animals living on this earth. So we're not meant to be disconnected from it. We have two questions asking how our mat compares with others. So when we did our 2.5 years of R&D, we pulled apart about a dozen mats on the market space right now, everything from a $400 mat you can find on Amazon, all the way up to an $8,000 product that is
medical device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clinical medical device, and being marketed as PEMF that's actually microcurrent, which is a fantastic modality. It's just not the same thing. So in our research, we were looking at the components that were being used and what would be efficacious in, what we're substantiating now beyond marketing, but in our clinical research. So we don't use cores in our mat. You'll hear a lot of other companies talk about cores. We're using large copper coils to produce our PEMF. So we're actually producing a true sine wave in our mat. We have a signal generator in our controller. I guess this is the biggest concern of ours, is that if there is no signal generator in a controller, what is happening is that you're plugging a mat into the wall, and your wall in America is 60 hertz. And that is a very DNA damaging frequency. You talk about people are talking about EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, not PEMF, but just these DNA damaging EMFs that are non-native. So that 60 hertz carrier wave is coming from the wall and directly into your body. If there is no signal generator being modulated that's actually taking that and putting into what we're saying 1 hertz, right, is your sleep frequency. That 1 hertz is 1 pulse per second. We are actually giving you that true sine wave in the mat. So that is absolutely essential. And these would be my questions if you were going to be asking another company, what is their waveform? Do they have a signal generator? And all of these things that are actually going to give you the therapeutic benefits that they're claiming. We work directly with mines, and then we take it a step further with our stones. We actually, when we bring them here, we do batch testing to make sure they're certified authentic. So we're not getting swapped out with painted glass or, aquarium style rocks. These are actually genuine stones like lapis lazuli and amethyst, and these really high quality stones that are a crystalline structure that do actually, because they're a crystalline structure, hold memory and resonance and things. So they actually impact our body in a positive way. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Masaru Emoto's work and how he proves this with water. Water is also a crystalline structure, and 60 to 70% of our body is composed of water. So we interact with these nature-made substances, and that's why our mats have 3 synergistic technologies. The stones themselves are considered a technology, and because our whole objective with Align is to align with the fact that nature didn't make a mistake, and we've evolved over millennia on the Earth's surface to resonate with these 3 specific things. So far infrared heat mimics what we get from the sun. The stones mimic what we get from being on rocks and natural Earth surfaces, those minerals. And then the PEMF, again, natural Earth surfaces are, when they're struck by lightning, they create a charge. 7.83 is that base harmonic charge. And then we've included with our OSRM technology, those harmonics. That's why there are very specific frequencies in our mat, going from, P1, that sleep frequency, all the way up to P5, that 6th harmonic of the Schumann resonance. So Mike's got a picture pulled up. He's going to show you the
yeah, I have a picture, and no other company is going to do this. They always keep their information proprietary. I want to show you what's in the mat. And we're actually going to have another video. I'm going to do a long form YouTube video of our actually taking apart the mat. So you can see our layers. You can see that there's the copper toroidal coils inside. And you can also see that we have our carbon fiber heating element, so this is what it looks like from the inside. Oh, we need to take the blur off. Oh, it's the big presentation. So that's what our mat looks like as far as the coils go. That's just one layer. That's just the layer for the copper coils there. And they're all aligned in a specific manner. And there's always going to be 8 coils in the mat. And it's very important that it reaches your entire body and the size that they are. Like I said, no other company on the market is going to do that. They're not going to let that information out. I don't care because we don't have anything to hide. And that's why we did 2.5 years of research and development to bring you what I feel and what Alyssa feels, the best PEMF mat on the market. And if you want to see any of the other layers, just let me know and we'll take you through that. But we're going to do a video of us taking apart our mat in real time. A dissection, if you will. Very fun, and a lot of people, like I said, won't do that. So
Riley, really, really important question here. We, and I know Dr. Francisco aligned with us here as well. Never sleep with heat on your body at all. It doesn't matter if it's an Align mat. It doesn't matter if it's any other heating pad, even if it's, safely generated into the body. The reason for this is, again, animals in nature, when the sun sets, the earth cools. Our body needs a temperature gradient to get into deep REM sleep. When we're talking about these rituals and habits that we're trying to build for the body to really be able to rest, regenerate, and repair, deep sleep quality is super important. It's next to oxygen in terms of us actually being able to operate, function, and regenerate ourselves and be healthy human beings. So we are proponents of you doing a heated session before you go to bed. So again, to create that temperature gradient, but the body desires to be cool to get into deep sleep. So it's not, it is completely safe for you to have the heat on your mat on a mattress because you're covering the surface of that mat evenly. So the temperature sensors will be able to accurately read the surface temperature of the mat. So that's fine. I would never suggest you to pile pillows and blankets into one corner of the mat because then that confuses the sensors. But as far as, again, you being an animal in nature, your body definitely needs to be cool to sleep. So that goes for anyone on this chat. Heat before you go to bed, but when you go to sleep, if you're sleeping on your mat, keep the heat function off and just let that P1 function, that deep sleep program, run throughout the night. So it'll run 20 minutes on, 40 minutes off, and it'll loop 7 times throughout the night.
Yeah. And that's one of the things too, is that we went deep in the safety because we wanted to make sure that, if anything were to happen, that there was parameters put in place that the mat would shut off completely. So it can't get overheat. There's 3 sensors in the mat that actually are working overtime to make sure that you are safe at all times.
I see a question here on the differences between PMF and microcurrent. Yeah, I'll speak a little bit about that. So first of all, they're actually complementary. So they're not competing modalities. Like I work with microcurrent as well, and we have some very, very good results. The PMF generally is, let's say, kind of an indirect because it's in the electromagnetic induction, and a PMF and a microcurrent is more like direct electrical current that you put, into the body. So there's no necessarily need for electrodes required, for the PMF. In the case of microcurrent, there is. It has to be in contact with your skin. The primary targets in PMF is more like cell membrane voltage, which is really, really important, because as you know, in regular cell membrane voltage is about minus 70 to minus 90 millivolts. And if it starts to decrease, then you start to have problems with the cell up to a point where it goes to zero, and then it means the cell is dead. Apoptosis around minus 25, 30 millivolts is cancer. It's cancer cells. And inflammation affects it as well. So we have to go back to the minus 70, minus 90. And that's the primary target of PMF. Also mitochondrial signaling is very important in PMF and tissue level regulation. You can actually penetrate deep tissues with the PMF very fast and supports cellular signaling and recovery, modulates inflammation, and induces autonomic stress regulation. Microcurrent is more the electrodes on the skin. It also acts upon local tissue and improve ATP production. It's a nervous, more muscle repair. Very effective for pain modulation, for tissue repair. And so they're synergistic. I should put it that way, but they're different in general. So they work very well together.
Yeah, we see
Awesome.
great results with circulation.
You definitely do. I want to talk about something someone asked about red light, or
there are different mats on the market. So it's kind of in our response of like what other people are using in the comparison or
yeah, but I would never put red light in the mat. Never. I mean, I would never put those little radio frequency diodes in the mat because you can't get to the right nanospectrum, right? Nanometer spectrum. And you don't know what it's really doing. And effectively, it could be just a red light, like a little red LED. And most of them are, unfortunately. I mean, like there's really expensive red lights out there, and they're expensive for that reason. And there's the reason why red light's incredible. But when you get the right nanometer spectrum, and if you see like the red light panels, they're really thick. And there's a reason for that. And you see other things on the market, and I will never, talk bad about any other companies whatsoever, but I'm just giving you the real hardcore facts that you need to know. Like you might be paying for something that you don't need, or that could be even more detrimental to your health because they're radio signaling,
the LED
radio
flicker rate. Yes.
The LED flicker rate, if you look at it, I mean, like there's so many things that we've actually like looked into, to make sure that we're bringing you something that's
Specs are really important.
Yeah.
So I happen to have a master's and a PhD in photobiomodulation. And
amazing.
yeah. So
I remember that. I wanted you to take over.
Effects on physiology are phenomenal, but you have to be it has to be good device, good equipment, good LED. The distance matters, the power matters, the radiance matters, the dose matters. It's like when we showed that in the lab and published results showing that you have to be really specific in terms of what you're doing. So there is a few companies that have good devices actually out there on red light. Most of it is, and pardon my French, is scrap that comes from China. Really, like,
Yeah.
Anyways, so
yeah, and that's what we've been seeing across the board. So I did want to answer that question, but there are a couple more questions. We'll get to it, and also I want to get to a couple more things that you can do at home on your own for free to regulate your nervous system. So what?
We had the one more question about is 20 too high, 20 hertz too high to do before bed. So yes, so if you think about our brain waves and us talking right now, we're in high beta. So that's right in that 20 hertz range, 20 pulses per second. And when we're living in beta all day long, what we're talking about leveraging for the alignment is starting to help regulate and relax the nervous system. And not saying that you cannot get there. We've done a lot of our clinical research even higher in the gamma brainwave range at 39.6 hertz. earlier in the day and seeing those awesome results for deep sleep quality at night, that same night. So it's not that it's not a great frequency, but before bed, because we're trying to slow down those brain waves and calm down the mind chatter and prepare the body for bed, we recommend 14 hertz and below. A great step down for that is doing P8, which does 10 minutes at 14.4, and then it drops to that Schumann resonance 7.83, or you can do them individually. You could do P4 and then P2 by themselves and kind of walking it down to that sleep frequency P1. So right.
Awesome. Very cool. So thank you guys for your questions. It's so much fun to always answer those questions. And if we didn't get to any others, I apologize. But we're going to get into how you can regulate your nervous system at home for free. You're taking away actionable steps. So the first one, I think, and we touched upon a little bit in Dr. Cidral's talk there, is breathing. It's your breath, it's your prana, it's what you're born with, something that we have, and it's free. And just regulating your breath can help you relax. I mean, like, one of the biggest things that we saw and that we're seeing within our practice, so to speak, is like the diaphragm is just not working properly. And when you have a diaphragm that doesn't work, or it's stagnated, or it's actually stuck or frozen there.
In stress, this happens.
In stress, it happens. And
chest breathing.
Right. And it can cause some serious imbalances in your body.
Maybe we can do a talk about respiratory biofeedback.
I would love to do that.
That's one area of expertise that I really like, and I do work with specific devices that measure, the physiology related to the way your diaphragm is moving and how it's modulating the autonomic nervous system. There is a lot of research out there. We're actually writing a review now on respiratory biofeedback for a publication. So that could be another interesting topic.
Incredible. Yeah, I would love to do that. Love to. It's
huge.
so important. Breath is incredible. And that's why, breath work.
And it costs nothing.
Exactly. But that's why breath work is actually a big keyword right now, but it's super important. So what are some things we can do with our breath?
So anyone at any time that you are feeling stimulated or stressed out, you're sitting in traffic, you just came from a meeting and now you want to shift into being able to eat lunch or dinner, to even just take 3 breaths at your own pace. You keep your eyes open or closed. If you're in a restaurant, it might look weird if you have your eyes closed, but just 3 conscious breaths where you're actually focusing on expanding your diaphragm. And, really it shifts your nervous system right then and there. And that's the most powerful tool. You don't have to have an alignment. You don't have to have any other technology device supplement. It is absolutely free that you can just do this. And then it's going to help your metabolism, because now it's sending top-down signals for your body to make saliva, for the hydrochloric acid, for the bile, all of these things that come online to increase your metabolism.
Exactly. So what frequency would you recommend on the mat for metabolism and nutrient absorption? Because PEMF does help with that.
It does, and we've seen this in our research too, and Dr. Francisco will be sharing more of this with us as we continue to expand our research studies. But during the day, that 39.6, that P5 at the bottom end of the athletic recovery spectrum is really helpful for increasing metabolism. And then if it's more of a dinner time setting, you can do that shifting frequencies to 14.4 would be awesome. Again, to start to calm the body down, and it's still, your body doesn't stop digesting, but it helps with it.
Yeah, it definitely helps with it. So we said going outside. So I definitely say make sure to be hydrated. I think you touched on that also. But yeah, hydration is key. I mean, like, we have our we call
emotional support
water bottles where we bring them everywhere, and they're always full, and we always make sure that we're drinking water, and that will actually help with the absorption of the frequencies in your body, because it helps with the communication of your cells. When your body is hydrated, your body talks and translates the language a little bit easier, or a lot easier, when you're hydrated.
Water plus quality minerals makes us more conductive. So do not be fearful of salt. Get good quality sea salt, which has extra micronutrients and minerals in it to help keep us hold the hydration, and then clean water. So being dehydrated is very stressful on the body as well. So just simple tips: add more water in, and then practical things that we can do at home. I know Mike was going to talk about this. The DNA damaging frequencies, we were talking about EMFs a second ago. Having your phone near your head or your body in general during sleep is absolutely detrimental to our brain waves being able to even access deep sleep, because these things are always transmitting and receiving data in a gigahertz range. So 6 orders of magnitude higher than what our mat has. It's just hertz, and this is gigahertz. So
and it's constant.
5G.
And it's constant. It's not pulsed. So when it's constant, so your body actually, with these EMFs and these dirty electricity, these Wi-Fi, these dirty frequencies, I'm going to call them, your body actually sees it as a stressor. It sees it as a pathogen in the body. So what it does is it tries to protect against it over and over and over and over and over again. And when that happens, you're just downregulating your nervous system so much. It's wild. And I mean, like, it's everything from Wi-Fi, which we want to talk about. So before you go to bed, I would recommend getting something like this, what Alyssa's holding up. It's actually one of those controllers that you can turn on and off your Wi-Fi router. Where your Wi-Fi is in your house is very important. If it's next to your bed, get it out of your bedroom. If it's in the next room over, get it out into a farther part of the house, because those frequencies are still disrupting our body, disrupting our mitochondria, disrupting our brainwave patterns, and they're just so detrimental to your health. I can't even begin to tell you. So that is one of the most important things. And also, if you are sleeping with your phone next to your head and you're charging it, stop doing that. Stop doing that right now. So that,
Yeah.
I mean,
simple, easy, something that you could change and transform in just today.
right.
You could buy one of these things and get a switch and keep it on your nightstand that just turns your Wi-Fi in your whole house
Right.
off at night while you sleep, and you just turn it on in the morning when you get up again. Mike and I charge our phones in the bathroom, so it's nowhere near our bodies. We have it on airplane mode. We understand that people have children and obligations, so keep the cellular on, turn the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth off so it's not transmitting, but you'll still receive calls if you need it. Patricia, you can get these on Amazon. They're just like Christmas tree timers.
$13. Easy, easy,
Yeah.
easy. So yeah, I mean, like, we're being inundated with a whole bunch of negative frequencies, whether we like it or not. I mean, like with 5G Wi-Fi, if you're living next to telephone poles, but along with the Align mat and what we do also to either energize you and to protect you, we actually created some really cool EMF blocking technology. So our hats are EMF blocking. They have a proprietary blend of metals to actually protect you against EMFs, and they work really well. If you go on our social media, you can see our examples of our EMF readers that drop to 0 whenever you put the hats on. We walk through airport security, and we always get a weird look because when we go through one of those scanning devices, our heads disappear, and they're like, wait, what? What's going on? And then it's a really cool talking piece. And then also our frequency medallions as well, our quantum frequency medallions. They help protect, because not only are they stainless steel and brass, they actually have frequencies that are imprinted into the metal that actually, if you know about stainless steel, it holds frequencies indefinitely. So there's that. And then there's also a code on the back that actually directs positive protective frequencies to you from a third-party company that we use. So it's really, really cool and really important. And we're going to give you 50% off the hats. It's going to be Protect 50. That's going to be in the email. And then you can also buy the medallions. And of course, we're having our sale that actually ends tomorrow, right? Or are there 31 days in this?
31 days.
31 days. So you got 2 days,
Saturday
to get $500 off of your alignment of your choice. So thank you guys so much for being here.
You will receive the recording. You will receive all of these tips. Thank you, Dr. Francisco. Your expertise is always so much love and gratitude towards you for sharing it with our audience.
So much love and gratitude to all of you incredible humans. Let's human better. Let's get out there and let's put these things to test. And I want to see how you guys feel.
All right.
Love you guys.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.